Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is May 1st, 2024, and we're doing business and social stories for the middle of the week.
A little collapse / unhappiness section to start out with.
An appetizer of collapse.
Hors d'oeuvre of bad things. One of those bad things is Google not tolerating any lip from their employees. You will do your work and you will not have political opinions.
The Axios headline is Google has fired more employees over protest of cloud contract with Israel. It's really weird because the Basecamp guy, remember that? That was like a year or two ago, and it was like, no, we're a family, we got to do this, and it was like really controversial.
Yeah, remember all those university protests that everybody in government was like, yeah, this is the American way. And now it's about Israel, and they're like, no. Not allowed to do that. Not allowed to criticize that. And you are not allowed to be lazy because Google is starting to realize that their product is garbage, and it's your job to fix it.
Google search boss warns employees of the new operating reality and urges them to move faster.
Did you sense a little bit of sarcasm from the writer in this? Because the first couple sentences were talking about how he's wearing like a hoodie and like...
We use math.
Yeah.
I'm one of you.
Well, it's really interesting because this guy, like if you look at Google search and you look at this guy, this specific guy, Prabhakar Raghavan, I don't know if I got that. I'm sorry if I've really butchered the pronunciation. Very sorry. But they put him in charge of search, and like he has an academic and a computer science background. But if you look at the actual things that he's done, he has made Google search objectively worse, in my opinion.
Well, I think, is it even an opinion now that Google search sucks? Like,
No, we got a story about it.
yeah.
The executive leadership should just can him and bring somebody else in that will restore Google search to its former glory.
Well, the problem is then you don't make as much money because you're not catering to companies. So,
Well, I mean, was that what he was doing? I don't know. I don't know if it's just like it doesn't make any sense. The decisions that he like, it would only make sense if he secretly works for Bing.
Well, American jobs are not the only ones being affected by the dry spell in the tech industry. There is another country which is heavily involved in that you might not think about.
Indian IT outsourcing firm cuts 60,000 jobs in the first layoffs in 20 years. I was looking at this, and like this is how you know that something big is going on economically, because it really is the first IT outsourcing job cuts in 20 years. 20 years. So what does that tell you? And also they're probably looking at AI, and it's like, oh no, AI is able to do like the low-level, entry-level coding, and oh no.
And over at Tesla, their car sales have very much slowed down. They did the conference call for the earnings, and they did not get the deliveries that they had set out to get for this time period. And so the answer to that, based on Elon Musk, is obviously you're not looking at it correctly. It's not that things are bad. You're just misinterpreting.
Elon Musk insists that Tesla isn't a car company as sales falter.
this was some like hardcore copium reading his quotes in this article.
So he says Tesla is an autonomous software / vehicle company.
AI, yeah, a lot of buzzwords.
Yeah, and that you just haven't seen the full power of it yet. This is only their first form.
In an unhinged kind of a way, I think that Musk would be okay if other automakers, like if Toyota came to Musk and said, we will figure out a way to make a metal shell that you can stick motors in insanely cheaply, but give us the motors and the electronics and we'll let you earn the lion's share of the profit margin. I think he'd probably say, okay, that sounds good to me. But
I don't know that his ego would let him.
Well,
Like, I feel like he'd probably be like, no, we can do it and we can do it better, even though that is not necessarily panning out right now.
Well, he did revolutionize the shell, presumably, with the molding. Remember the whole car molding that they built this amazing new factory in order to do?
Tesla to lay off nearly 2,700 employees at Giga, Texas, Austin.
Well, look at the giant boot in this picture. Maybe they could sell the giant boot and keep a couple employees.
Probably would pay a couple of salaries, right? Who would buy it?
Now, see, but you could spin this either way. It's like, oh, the economy is really bad. The economy is not fabulous. Or the unibody thing that you're talking about means that there's way less people that are needed to do that kind of thing because there's more automation and more robots. Also true.
Why aren't you selling cars?
There's no cars being sold because they have to come down in price. You see,
Or maybe because people don't want those kinds of cars.
Ford just reported a massive loss on literally every electric vehicle that it has ever sold.
And when they say massive, they are not kidding. This is per vehicle.
$132,000 for each of the 10,000 vehicles it sold in the first 3 months of the year. Because it took them $1.3 billion to get up to speed on electric cars.
I don't think they're up.
No. You know what's weird though is that hybrids, the hybrid electric and like even though the batteries kind of suck and there's a lot not to like about hybrids, on the resale market there are a lot of people doing well with those in resale and used.
Which is what Toyota did, and they look like oracles at this point.
Yeah.
It's like they actually predicted the market and just didn't go with just the narrative.
Nobody can afford a battery that big. Here, have a smaller battery. Okay.
If Tesla's struggling and Ford is losing more than $100,000 per EV, you know that the smaller companies are going to get hit pretty hard.
California carmaker Fisker, once worth $2.9 billion, warns of looming bankruptcy.
Ugh.
Not fabulous.
Bad news for them. And
This article.
what was the word you used? Copium.
Yeah.
This is just straight propaganda. Right?
It really is. Yeah.
You got to be able to recognize this thing. One of the skills that you're going to have for the rest of this dark reality is to recognize stuff like this and steel your mind against it somehow.
The headline on the Toronto Star is, "So, you may never own a home. Here's why that's going to be a good thing." But yeah, this is straight propaganda. Like, just don't.
It's like, well, you'll be able to move wherever you want. And maybe it'll be cheaper. And it's like, in what reality? I mean, I guess there's probably some instances, but like around here,
Things are terrible in
it's
Toronto.
cheaper to buy.
We get it, but yeah.
This is another way of saying you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Although that last part is unproven so far.
See, no, it's
Well, look how happy she is in the article
Yeah, she's
picture
loving
there.
it. Look at that.
It's wild because like home ownership is not a path to wealth. It is a path to not getting rid of your wealth. Like you can
Path to security, I would say.
Yeah. It's like nobody buys a home. It's like, this is my retirement home. I don't
know. When we moved into ours, I looked at my husband and I was like, "Are you ready to die in this house?" Because I don't want to move again.
So, yeah. I mean, for like the last 10 years of your life, maybe you could sell your house and live on the money. I mean, maybe that's an option.
What if you would have said that and he would have just pulled out a pistol and was like, yes,
Let's go.
right now.
Stick to the pact.
I'm so happy that you brought it up first. And this is something that we're hearing from all the big tech names. Moving over to some hardware news. Everybody is looking to do their own. Roll your own.
Apple is reportedly developing its own custom silicon for AI servers. Apple wants in on the AI game. Apple has this vision where the AI is going to run locally on their phone in order to build this prop that people will trust, because that's Apple's new thing.
Well, then why do they need AI servers? I think that might be false.
Yeah.
I don't think they really want that at all. And we have a new form factor in our laptops.
Lenovo and Micron are the first to implement LPCAMM2 in laptops. We first reported on this like a year ago, but now, today, finally, ThinkPad P1 you can buy with this, and it has this instead of SODIMM. So it's socketable, upgradable memory, but it's physically much smaller than you normally get with SODIMM slots, and also more electrically reliable.
And lower power. We can have tinier and tinier laptops and tablets. How exciting.
This is amazing, because I smelled something wrong, and Charlie Demergian is like, he's right on it.
Well, this is not new. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. Seems like every industry with a chip in it.
I had hope this time. I really did. Because of the whole Surface X. It's like, I had hope.
Well, that's what you get for hoping.
Qualcomm is cheating on their Snapdragon X Elite and Pro benchmarks, and Charlie Demergian at Semi-Accurate has got the scoop. And oh boy, is this on fire. And he is probably exactly right. He is almost beyond a shadow of a doubt exactly right that Snapdragon, like, it's just not. But this is great. Like, if you're Tim Cook or you're Arm, and you're looking at this and you're saying, oh, this is it's a good day, good news if you're Tim Cook or an Apple device or whatever. But also, like, how do they keep fumbling this?
So he doesn't have smoking gun proof here, but he does point out that they promised full details about this chip. Was it 6 months ago?
Yeah.
And so far, they have given 11 PowerPoint slides. That's all we've gotten. And apparently, according to his research, all that's lies.
The people that are physically making the laptops right now are saying, when are we getting the real chips that have the real performance? And Qualcomm's like,
Is this 11 PowerPoint slides? Is that like the equivalent of the Elder Scrolls 6 screenshot we got like 5 years ago?
Kind of like that, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, you should have tons and tons of numbers to give out, right?
And apparently Windows on ARM is still a dumpster fire. And I have both. You remember the Surface RT? It's a collector's item now. It's more rare than a chicken's tooth. And it was never not garbage.
Well, here is a laptop that may not be garbage, and we should support what they're doing because it's all about the repairability. And they're saying it's a huge success and nothing's going to stop them.
The Framework won't just be a laptop company anymore. With $18 million in new funding, Framework is able to pursue new product categories. More power to them. I think this is a good move. It'll be interesting to see if the market agrees. But I think that isn't it wild that companies have done such awful things, and it's in everybody's recent memory to the extent that the things people look for in buying appliances is how repairable is this going to be?
But also that number, 18 million. That's nothing.
Yeah.
And the big companies are spending billions to make trash that no one wants. Think about how much went into the Apple headset or the Apple car. And these guys, you give them 18 million, they give you a repairable laptop. We could have nice things.
Well, what if you had like repairable earpods? I think they could leverage things like the Chinese market and some of the electronics shops in Shenzhen and get to it's like our goal is to build repairable earpods. It's like
we just talked about that last week.
Yeah,
was it Framework that did that?
No,
one of the companies did.
It was another company. So I don't think it was Framework, was it? No, OnePlus maybe? Were the OnePlus repairable earbuds?
I can't remember, but they had replaceable batteries and stuff.
I always like to use the KitchenAid mixer as an example too, because KitchenAid, KitchenAid owns the KitchenAid mixer, but it's been the same design for like 100 years, and it is one of the most repairable kitchen appliances ever. And a nice mixer is nice to have in your kitchen.
They're kind of like a status symbol too, weirdly enough.
Well,
you see one on someone's counter, it's like, oh.
Well, a long time ago they were expensive, but now you can get one at a flea market and fix it for like $100 in parts.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the TV companies need to come up with some kind of new gimmick to sell us for this holiday season. They're gearing up, and now we have an even newer kind of dot to worry about.
Meet QDEL, the backlight-less display tech that could replace OLEDs in premium TVs. Well, OLED is also backlightless there, Ars Technica, but cool, A for effort.
This is a different application of the quantum dot. Different than, is it Samsung who's doing the quantum dot?
Yeah, instead of having, one dot for every color, you have one dot that can be any color, which is perhaps more useful.
It's not going to be here anytime soon, but you can get hyped for it.
It seems like OLED panels are getting really cheap. The Target had a 65-inch LG OLED for like $900, and it was just like, oh my gosh, that's insane.
Well, another thing that might be getting a little cheaper in the future is iPhones, because not only can Americans not afford them anymore, the Chinese don't want them.
Apple iPhone sales dropped 19%. That is precipitous in China as demand for Huawei smartphones soars, research says. This is interesting. Very, very interesting for a lot of reasons. Some of which we can discuss, some of which we cannot.
A lot of people thought Huawei was just going to be crushed by those sanctions, and look what they've done. They might have some state-sponsored help.
I wonder if there was some 4D chess going on. Like maybe if we pick a little bit of a fight and get some sanctions, that'll help our homegrown companies.
Well, there was no kind of chess happening here. This wasn't even tic-tac-toe. This was the stupidest thing ever.
Apple cuts Vision Pro shipments as demand sharply falls beyond expectations.
It's a solution looking for a problem.
They have so many of the headbands in spare that they've stopped production of those altogether.
Also, remember that the Vision Pro headset is not for sale globally. This is just America.
They're kind of heavy.
Yeah, just what's the use case?
The other thing that Apple did is they decided to go green, and they decided that leather was mean and we weren't going to do it anymore, but we have something that's just as good.
Apple reportedly stops production of FineWoven accessories because everybody that bought one was disappointed that it wears out immediately.
and shows scratches on day one and is basically garbage.
I don't think I've ever... Like, I get a phone, I get a case for it, and then I just have that case on it until I get a new phone.
I don't even go... I'm caseless.
Oh, it's living dangerously. I drop my phone too
I've been
much.
fine so far. I'm careful. But you know who's not careful of monopoly charges? What are they doing? They have to know what this is going to lead to.
Nvidia is on the verge of completing a $700 million acquisition of Run AI, which is an Israeli startup that makes containerization of AI workloads super, super easy.
That ain't going to fly. The European Union is going to come down hard on that. And we have some RISC-V news, which probably, you know, like they're looking at that Snapdragon and they're like, oh.
Startup Rivos raises $250 million to develop RISC-V AI chips. Yeah, if Qualcomm keeps fumbling, the RISC-V really is going to catch up, get out of order execution and speculative execution and just all sorts of fun things to make it go fast if they're not careful.
And Samsung is feeling a little bit of the push, which is interesting because we found out that they are the #1 phone company now. They took the Apple slot, but it turns out that inflation is crushing Korea, and they are feeling it, and they've decided that the executives are to blame.
Samsung has shifted to emergency mode with 6-day work weeks for executives as they try to find a path out of the quagmire of flash production, and like flash demand is up because of that whole AI thing. We got an article about that later, but a lot of other domestic products are the demand is all over the place. Some things are up, some things are down, most things are down. Profit margins are way down, and things like flash production, you know, that's like 3 months. It's a 3-month process, and so like things changing as much as they are in 3 months is real bad.
And here's just a fun little thing. You know, Japan, they've got a thing for vending machines. You can get almost anything in a vending machine, including things you would never imagine.
The Tom's Hardware headline is Intel is an Intel CPU-dispensing vending machine in a game in Japan has been spotted. One user got a Core i7 8700 for $3. It had some problems. Mainly only 5 out of its 6 cores worked. But that's new enough to run Windows 11. I mean, but with
it did not successfully
it
run
did.
anything. No, it had all kinds of errors.
No, they got it working with 5 cores. Like the fix was to go from 6 to 5 cores, and then it was fine. And I think also disabling the iGPU.
Probably not a good investment.
$3?
Is that really an investment so much as just some pocket change to throw in?
$3 plus how much time?
Yeah, that was
wasted.
kind of a black hole of time. Yeah.
I mean, you could write an article about it, I guess. And this is also turning out to be a bad investment and perhaps a waste of time. Now that, how many years has it been? Like 2 years? And things are still bad.
TSMC's debacle in the American desert. I think that headline is a little harsh. But this article
It's inflammatory, though.
details the story of Brian, whose name has been changed to protect the innocent. He went to spend a year in Taiwan learning the ins and outs of Taiwan, TSMC and Taiwanese manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. And the article says that he's questioning his life choices because they really expect a lot of their workers.
After they moved him to Phoenix, he went in there, and it turns out everybody was still speaking either Mandarin or Taiwan. And he was like, oh, what about me, guys? And they were like, oh, you're going to have a buddy, a Taiwanese buddy that goes to your meetings and stuff with you. But his buddy was always busy with other stuff. So he described sitting in meetings having no idea what anybody was saying. And all the safety.
Was he responsible for anything?
Yes.
That's wild.
And all the safety warnings and stuff, like the intercom, you know, the public address. He has no idea what's going on. And apparently the hierarchies of their companies are very rigid. And he was used to being able to like go to somebody and be like, oh, hey, we're having a problem. But if he jumped a level, they were all over him. They did not tolerate that. So like the culture clash is real.
I think we're going to have to just get through it because TSMC does have the world-leading process. I mean,
it's not helpful if they're not teaching us that process. Like,
well, it's like if you got to learn Mandarin, you got to learn Mandarin.
Give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish.
Now, Krista, you are in the car market.
I
What are
am.
the odds that you might pick up a Cybertruck?
Literally zero. If they could go negative, it would.
I don't know. We got a few whales that probably ship you one.
Well, it might be a good choice to not do that.
Tesla Cybertruck turns into the world's most expensive brick after a car wash.
This was a very popular story this week. I saw this everywhere.
Yeah, but I think this is a little bit. So the dude took his Cybertruck to a car wash and had it washed, and then it didn't work the next day.
The screen didn't work. The car still started, I think, but the screen was not working.
But you can't drive it legally like that.
Yeah.
And apparently it takes 5 hours to reboot it, which seems like a whole other set of problems.
But even more importantly, when you look in the manual, there is a wash mode. You have to put your car in wash mode before you wash it.
There's a lot of internal combustion vehicles that have that too, if they're weird about the
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of that either.
it's
Name one.
Hyundai, I think the Hyundai hatchback, you have to do that, and it moves the rear windshield wiper off of the glass and onto the tailgate. It does the same thing like if you're going to open it. So like if you open the back, the glass and the tailgate are like different. So it moves the rear windshield wiper off of the back of the thing.
That doesn't sound the same as the car not functioning afterwards.
No, yeah, that's the surprising thing.
Yeah, I can understand needing to put down a windshield wiper. I don't understand why your screen wouldn't work after doing.
Yeah, that seems like a problem. And it's like, oh, the warranty's void if you. It's like, okay, if it has to like seal up something that's normally open, that is unreasonable. I agree, but I don't. It's not clear what happened with that guy's Cybertruck. It just seems weird.
But what about rain?
Yeah, rain should be fine. Like probably standing water up to like, what do you think? Half the wheels, 3/4 of the
It's
wheels.
supposed to be an
Turn
off-road
around, don't
vehicle,
drown.
right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I got mud in the battery port. It's like, well, it's total.
Well, if you are following our direction and self-hosting and hoarding media and doing all that stuff because you understand that the cloud, it's ephemeral, it's going to disappear, times are going to get harder for you. And the reason is AI.
Seagate joins the hard drive price hike party and blames AI for a spike in demand. Listen, the hard drive, they need some margin. If you look at Seagate's numbers, there's a couple quarters there where they reported like a $433 million loss. It's okay. This is not supply and demand. This is, well, I mean, it is a little bit supply and demand, but they need to make some margin. We're not ready for a world without mechanical hard drives yet.
Who wants to live in that world? We're also not ready for this, which is weird because they've threatened it time after time
Over and
after
over.
time, and they just will not pull the trigger.
Google delays third-party cookie demise yet again because they've got the analytics on exactly what that's going to break, and the numbers are not pretty, especially when you have the Google head of search saying, buckle up, boys, it's going to be lean times for a while. Do you really want to cut the people giving you money off? No.
Can you imagine the vitriol coming out of Tim Cook week after week after they break the internet and he just is able to blame them for it over and over and over? That'd be a huge PR loss.
Fabulous.
Now, we talked about this dude from Google earlier. I can't pronounce his name either. I'm not going to try. But he is the guy who was tasked with making the search engine more profitable by working hand in hand with the ad team. It seems like there was a lot of enmity between the ad team and the search team. So you bring them together with this monster, and because of these court cases, we now can read the emails.
The specific process by which Google enshittified its search on the 24th of April 2024. So, yeah, this is amazing. The court transcripts, you can put this together, and it is, we can get more ad revenue if we make the site less useful.
Literally, how do we show more ads? Make people search more than once. If you search and you get exactly what you're looking for, that's one search. But if you search and you don't get exactly what you're looking for, you'll search again. That's more ads that we can show you. That was the mentality of Google. That's why the internet was destroyed, literally. And it was this guy.
The guy that is saying buckle up.
The guy that still works there, yes. Still in charge.
AI's only going to make it worse, too.
This process is currently happening at Microsoft, as evidenced by some of the videos where I complain. It's like I'm talking to a wall. It's like, does no one see what is happening with Windows?
Yeah, every week. We have these headlines every week now, and they just seem to keep doing it.
Windows 11 comes with its own adware now. Ad promotions in the start menu are enabled by default, but for now can be turned off. Although
I like that you added for now, but
Mysteri-
you're absolutely right.
mysteriously on my machine, they keep getting turned back on at random intervals.
That means that a lot of people don't like Windows 11 and they won't upgrade to it. They're happy with Windows 10, but you can't just let that be good either.
Windows 10 will start pushing users to use Microsoft accounts. So, hey, you're not using the cloud. You need to use the cloud. What if you could just go to Linux. It's not unreasonable. Mostly.
He says after we just had a major crisis.
Yeah, we had to reboot the Rolly Cart computer. It's the first time it's been rebooted in like 2 months.
That's not true.
A month and a half.
And here is a little something that is going to ruin some lives for sure. Because remember, hallucinations, mistaken identities, confident lies. Well, where should we not apply those things?
Axon reimagines report writing with Draft 1. It's first-of-a-kind AI-powered force multiplier for public safety.
First of all, this article's an ad.
Yeah, this article it talks about how a new source of revenue for police departments can be just let the AI look at your body cam and we can just automatically issue citations.
The other thing that was funny about this is it's like police officers often complain about having to do paperwork. This will give them more time for health and wellness. And I was like, well, I'm not paying them for health and wellness.
Wasn't it RoboCop? That was it was one of the things in RoboCop that then spawned a whole genre of jokes in other shows like Futurama, where it's like your car is parked illegally. You have 15 minutes to move your car, and then it's like your car has been crushed into a cube. You have 15 minutes to move your crushed cube.
Well, you're going to have a little more than 15 minutes, 2 hours, and it's going to be a hard limit from now on for your video gaming preview needs.
No more refunds after 100 hours. Steam closes early access playtime loophole. So this was, if you play a game in early access, it does not count against the time that you have to get a refund. So it's always been you have a limited amount of time to play a game and get a refund. But if it was in early access, those hours didn't count. Now they do. People are abusing it. This is why we can't have nice things.
But how about every game is early access now? Like, we just sort of accepted that. It's a weird way of doing things. And it's a weird way of doing things to just constantly be in this horrible battle that even when you lose, you petulantly won't follow the rules.
Spotify says that Apple has rejected its app update with price information for EU users that Spotify believes is in compliance with what Apple is required to do with disclosing pricing for EU users. Basically, Spotify says, if you would like to pay less and pay us directly, go here. If you would like to pay through Apple, that's fine, but it's going to cost a little more.
This is the equivalent of getting a speeding ticket and then doing a burnout as you pull away. They just don't care. They don't respect anybody. And as we all know, in 4 or 5 states at this point, you cannot look at the hub or a lot of other sites because they're trying to get that ID thing put through so they can track everything that we do online, which is leading to international issues as well. The Americans now are the ones being blacklisted.
Manga site blocks adult content, but only for US and UK users. Forget trying to figure out which state, what's allowed in. Nah, we just need to block all the United States. It's not worth the headache. Okay.
It was some weird content, though.
Yeah.
Well,
It was kind of like possibly underage looking.
First they came for the weird content, and then they came for the links with friends.
And also animals.
Yeah.
Animal-involved sexualized stuff. Which
That's never good.
I mean, it is fantasy, I guess, but I don't know. That's not my... I don't consume a lot of manga, so maybe it's a common thing. And here's an interesting thing, because we all know that our cars have become, quote-unquote, smartphones on wheels, right? And that should make you vomit in terror. Because your smartphone, nothing is secure. We know that they're spying on everything. The OnStar thing blew that out of the water. But they're still doing it. They're not going to stop.
What a convenient way to assassinate inconvenient people.
But if you want your car to be more private and not function about 50% of the time, you could do this.
Linux can finally run your car's safety systems and driver assistance features. Because this very specific set of Linux stuff can run a real-time operating system and has been audited to be good enough to run your car's safety systems. It's at least as good as existing systems, which is fantastic.
But they're all garbage.
Yeah.
Like the systems in your cars are terrible. So yeah, I could see that would be a cool thing. It'd be cool if you could have like a framework type company that made cars.
Yeah.
Repairable, open source software cars with no telemetry.
Well, just modules. It's like, here is the acceleration module. Here's your battery management module. Here's your engine control module. Here's your windshield wiper control module, heater control module.
But every company that made components that work with that would make it work poorly with that system.
Deliberately.
Yeah.
And it can't be any worse than how poorly things like the refrigerators that have a built-in, Android operating system work. Those are just trash. Those didn't even work good on the day that they were made.
Well, if you're going to get a smartphone on wheels, you might have a new choice in terms of what operating system you're going to run on that smartphone. But something tells me the United States government ain't going to play ball with this.
Huawei wants to take its homegrown Harmony OS phone platform worldwide. Okay.
You're not going to get that in America.
No way.
Meanwhile, where's the Pine phone? I wonder if that,
Rip.
framework, I don't think $18 million would be enough to do a fully open phone. That'd be a challenge.
I think we might have mentioned this in another story recently, but it's just interesting that they've done a breakdown of exactly what this software is. What a bizarre thing, because this is usually between parents and kids.
Yeah.
What a weird conversation to have.
App that warns you if your loved ones are doing things on your phone that is maybe against your stated religious beliefs. There's an application called Covenant Eyes. It's used by hard-right Republicans, it says, that turns personal online search history into a thing that your significant other will monitor.
Anybody can use it, but of course you have to put something like that in the headline in order to get the rage clicks these days. But yeah, apparently Mike Johnson and his son share accounts on this.
Okay.
I guess now you got to get a burner phone for that.
Oh, this is the saddest story of the week.
I don't know if it's the saddest story of the week, Krista. We had the FISA warrantless spying.
No.
Maybe
this is sadder.
Slightly more important.
Gary's Mod is taking down decades of Nintendo-related add-ons.
Or as my mother calls it, Charlie's mode. Are you playing Charlie's mode with your friends right now?
So what have you seen that's Nintendo related?
Oh, people make skins and stuff for everything. Like there's Mario and Luigi and Princess Peach. Princess Peach was one of the most popular player models that I'd see in servers. She's going to be gone now.
Do you think that hurts Nintendo in
No.
any way?
No.
No, not at all. Nintendo just doesn't. You can't. No.
Well, how much time did you guys spend in the metaverse this week?
Does getting on Marketplace to look at junk count?
No.
Okay, then 0.
No one does. And we talked about this years ago when he insisted on it, but he is still insisting on it. He does not care.
Meta loses $200 billion in value as Zuckerberg focuses earnings call on all ways that the company bleeds cash.
We should have put this next to the Elon Musk story because it's just 2 examples of copium where they're like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
So while he was talking, the stock was dropping and it went down as much as 19%. Whew. Because people are like, what is wrong with you?
It's kind of wild though, because if you look at Llama 3, I was trying to think in this, I was like, okay, Meta, what is the company Meta? Because I could hear the passion in Zuckerberg's voice, but it's just like, okay, let's use logic and reason. And I'm forced to admit that Meta has actually done more good for the computing world than, say, Apple, which is interesting if you think about it, because Meta has kind of opened Llama 3. Meta is partly responsible for a lot of the stuff in open compute. Meta is responsible for a lot of things like that at scale, open source things that really are open source, like completely free to use. There's no patent royalties or copyright or anything else. And Apple has behaved basically sociopathically with all the open source stuff that they use.
Well, Meta is certainly not walling the garden. In fact, they are tearing down all the walls, inviting everybody into the garden.
Meta opens the Quest operating system to third-party device makers because even as badly as the Apple headset is doing, it still maybe is doing a little better than the Meta Quest, which is shocking.
They want the lesser headsets to also be able to access that.
There's a lot of people in our circles that have used both of those that say that they like the Meta headset better than Apple's, which is interesting. So even some of the diehard Apple fans is like it's lighter and like the hardware isn't as good, but it's better. But then Apple's software and ecosystem is better, so it's interesting.
Now go back, if you haven't already, read the Google story about the guy that destroyed search and read how they went about that and why they went about it and the mistakes that they made. And then read this story and see if you see any parallels.
The headline is AI is poisoning Reddit to promote products and game Google with parasite SEO.
And Reddit's now dead.
Yeah. So with Google, a lot of people are noticing that if you add a before 2023 to your Google search, suddenly Google search is a lot more useful. Well, it turns out that Reddit is showing up a lot more in Google searches, and Google and Reddit is gamifying the fact that they show up a lot in Google searches.
So as you can see, what this software does is it goes in, it looks at things, it reads them, and then it writes a reply that seems somewhat reasonable, but it just happens to recommend your product every single time. And sometimes it doesn't even focus on your product. It just mentions it in passing, which is kind of like stealth advertising, right?
It just makes Reddit useless for queries about certain things.
What's the name for the mirror universe Reddit we're going to build?
Dig. Just bring back Dig.
Dig's still there. It's pretty crappy, but it's still there.
And Elon Musk, he's a monster, but he is actually fighting the good fight in terms of the massive censorship structure. Now, he does commit his own censorship about his personal topics, so he's a hypocrite in that regard. But how could it be that somehow we as a people are not allowed to see real things that happened just because they make people sad?
Australian judge bans X from sharing video of a bishop that was stabbed in a Sydney church. This is the Associated Press. The Associated Press article has a breakdown of this, and even the Associated Press is having a bit of a hard time. Like, if you step back and you read it, it's like, well, because Australia is like, no.
Wouldn't you just do a content warning? Usually that's what they do for like sensitive stuff like that.
No, he wants it to be completely wiped. This is the same guy, I think, who's saying that he wants to ban memes.
Yeah.
That's a step too far.
But that's what the letter of the law that they're trying to roll out, you could argue that it's just straight up banning memes.
It is dark.
What joy am I supposed to take in this life if not memes?
Or gore videos.
Well, okay. Tomato, you know. I'll take a funny meme of a cat. You can have your gore video.
But you could argue that, like, hey, this is a public warning. Like, there's people out there stabbing people in churches. Be advised, right? Like, why would we hide that? And there's some other things that you might want to hide from the world, but because you have to divulge that information in some places, of course, the data companies buy it, sell it to everybody.
Grindr has been sued for allegedly sharing users' HIV status and other info with ad companies.
Who thought that was a good idea? What meeting were they like, yeah, just bundle all that, put it together?
That's HIPAA, right?
Yeah,
that
absolutely it would be.
I don't know, because you elected to share it with not a healthcare provider.
That's true. Yeah.
It's healthcare info, though.
But you are giving that information out as a way for somebody to screen you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Probably not a smart thing to tell your. But then again, you know, the whole healthcare thing, they try to get me to put stuff like that online. You know, like my health information. And it gets leaked. Change healthcare, anybody?
Right. Well,
it's not great.
That's the last story.
I must have forgot to put the meme story in.
Yeah, so I don't
Which
remember
one?
seeing that.
The Australian meme ban thing.
Oh, yeah. That was last week.
Was it?
Yeah, this week is like, no, this is much more serious. And then he's kind of saying, like, see, this is why we need the ability to be able to just hit a button and block anything, is because this is so terrible.
I mean, I don't disagree. It's terrible. But
do you think terrible things will stop happening if he bans them from being on Twitter?
I don't know. That argument does pop up from time to time where it's like these people crave attention. Don't give them attention. Like, don't name them. Don't whatever. It's like,
Anyway, debate that in the comments below. Bye.